Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back into another video. So we got two things to discuss about Hogwarts Legacy. First is like something minor, and that on PS5 and Series X, it is a full fucking, full blanking $70 game. And I despise $70 games. The price hike is absolutely ridiculous, especially when most of the time the games are filled with microtransactions. Luckily, this game doesn't, for now. And the other thing is that it wouldn't surprise me if the game has bugs, so just fair warning. So I'll probably pick up the game eventually, maybe not day one, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, moving on. Now onto the meat and potatoes. Oh boy, this is a very controversial topic, so let's go ahead and get right into it. You could probably already tell what this is about. This is about J.K. Rowling's stance on anti-transgender. This is a great article by Jesse Earl over at GameSpot. I'll have a link to the full article because we're not going to read the whole thing because it's pretty long. So step in. Let's get into it. At a glance, the series is in a healthy place with a couple of things like a TBS game show, a potential live action streaming series. I haven't heard about that, and most notably, Hogwarts Legacy coming in. However, the series has sadly remained in the shadow of J.K. Rowling's public support for anti-transgender rhetoric, as well as her support for the people in the groups that spread it. All expressed on social media ranging from 2018 all the way and continuing into March 2022 at the time of this writing. While the conversation around these issues may not directly most outside of it, her doubling down on trans issues has forced the topic at the forefront of many people's minds when it comes to the ongoing Harry Potter series. It's required many of us to think about it when we can still support it in light of her words and actions. What does it even mean? What does supporting her even mean? Furthermore, is supporting it, which has grown beyond books written to an author, still worthwhile, given that there are writers, producers, filmmakers, and developers who also contribute to the franchise, and many who oppose her position. I think to a degree there still is, because there's a lot of potential with this IP. WB seems to think so, but anyway, the course of it, her words have garnered her support of GCF, who are sometimes known as trans-exclusionary radical feminists, or TERFs. GCF's a small but vocal movement defined by their opposition to what they term as gender ideology, the denial of trans and non-binary people's identities, which is absolute BS. Like, we're all human, period. Anyway, coupling womanhood in order to invade women-only space such as bathrooms, leading to what they believe is the erosion of cisgender women's safety and rights. However, GCF's actions are not only misinformed, but they also wield misinformation and rhetoric. Given the complexity inherent when discussing it, and misinformation spread around the transgender community, coupled with the current publicized discourse surrounding the trans issues and attacks on trans rights within the US, United Kingdom, around the world. The discourse surrounding it and Rowling has often remained intensely polarized and opaque to the greater public. If her sentiments on trans people are brought up, people outside the trans community can find themselves unsure how to explain it, why her words are harmful. With some arguing that she's only defending women or raising questions about transgender issues, inadvertently downplaying the very real negative impact they have. The intricacy within these conversations is often the benefit of those spreading misinformation, which is very easy to do nowadays, as the complexities can't be used to prevent a defense or basic discussion surrounding the marginalized trans community. People instead are forced to sift through the rhetoric, as well as weed out misinformation, before being able to genuinely engage with it, and feel able to commit to a viewpoint. It may be where most of you currently reading this find yourself in discussion on the issue, unable what to believe or how best to approach it, or potentially given the discourse surrounding these topics fueled by fear-mongering misinfo. Someone may even find themselves actively hostile toward it, believing the issues to be directly at odds with wider women's rights or even children's safety. Ironically, while Rowling's statements have been controversial to begin with, much of this misinformation they also provide a unique starting point to begin cutting through the discourse. So, yeah, you can already tell where this is going, so I'll give my full take once we're done. Anyway, moving on. The framing of this It's a false one. While GCS may believe that trans women are just men who cannot understand womanhood, the opposite is true. A conversation surrounding what it means to be a woman and trans women access to it is a complex one. And I encourage you to further investigate it with videos like these. The most overt way GCS deny it is to argue that trans women can never face the same levels of misogyny that cisgender women face. That is absolutely not true. I've heard of it, so of trans women just getting way more abuse than regular women. So stop. So stop with the BS. These groups or whatever. Yeah, this is false. While one's womanhood shouldn't be defined solely through the oppression one faces, trans women often face similar assaults to our safety, and trans are 4 times more likely to be the victim of violent crime, like I mentioned before, and often face discrimination in healthcare and housing, which I think is BS. Everyone should be treated the same, no matter what. Numerous studies have found that 1 in 3 trans women people are victims of assault, and up to 50% have faced domestic abuse. Even more concerningly, transgender women of color continue to be one of the most at-risk groups for being victims of violence or murder. These issues are unrelated to the same systems that cisgender women like her face, but instead are directly related. The whole intent of the rhetoric is to frame the issue that trans people versus women, positioning misogyny as a singular concern that women face, without recognizing the intersection of how trans women face both transphobia and misogyny, and that the latter presents itself directly from how a cis white woman would experience the same thing. It isn't to say the misogyny that Rowling and others like her have faced isn't legitimate and shouldn't be fought against. It's important to recognize that trans people like myself have also been assaulted, face higher degrees of assault in general, and have also added transphobic harassment attacks on our rights and physical bodies for being trans. The framing should be trans women versus women, but how all women trans and cis should come together to push back against the same marginalization that affects everyone. BBC is also brought into this. When criticized by the trans community for its aforementioned article, as well as the accusations that the study did not meet the BBC's own guidelines about using surveys as sources, as it is self-selected, the BBC compared it to Flat Earthers. Oh, here we go. The Flat Earth conspiracy theory. And a lot of people believed it, and need to address the more the issue here is that Flat Earth is a clear-bound conspiracy theory, as to place it alongside actual scientific evidence frames as equally legitimate. It's this very approach that contributed to the growing popularity of the movement. If everyone else the sky is blue, but if you argue it's red, you don't get both sides. The platform argue that the sky is purple to appease everyone. That never works. Appeasing everyone never freaking works. It always turns to arguments no matter what side you stay on. By consistently platforming GCS in opposition to trans people, it frames itself as having valid views of transition despite the proven harm misinformation they push. Sadly, while many women and LGBTQ people stand in allyship with trans people, GCS like Rowling find themselves further radicalized into their beliefs, utilizing their platforms for hatred and bigotry towards the transgender community. While the vitriol often stems from an understandable but unfortunate intersection of trauma, fear, and misinformation, the way has been weaponized and wielded by not only themselves but by larger tolerization movements. Sadly makes their harm inexcusable. GCS may be a direct threat to trans people, but their actions endanger all of us. Gender critical feminists. After several months of more indirect hints, and this in June 2020, this is where it really picks up. She published an essay that directly reflected prevailing views and arguments of the gender critical movement, thus garnered her a reputation as an anti-transgender influence. While the issue contained numerous misinformation, statements have been thoroughly debunked or few noteworthy topics, such while it is called the Rapid Onset Gensent, or ROGD for short, which postulates there's a sudden influx in young girls suddenly identify as transgender, seeing it as fashionable due to influences or social media. Of course, nowadays with the whole internet thing so big. It's a theory given backing from a research study by former Brown University Lisa Littman. However, her research methods were immediately questioned by fellow researchers upon publication. While ROGD has been incredibly debunked in numerous studies after it, many Many prominent GCS continually, of course, cite her work, such as in the 2020 book Irreversible Damage by Abigail Schreier. Her book, alongside Rowling's essay, uses it to inform the next concern, the transitional narrative. The argument is that many young girls who experience it or pursue surgical interventions such as breast reductions only learn later they are not, and regret making it, leading to depression or even suicidal thoughts. That's a whole nother thing. While this can happen, it is not common. First, children are rarely, if ever, given surgeries till they are 18 or older. And often, these surgeries require doctor and therapist authorization and 1 year consideration before being done. Most children before the age of consent is typically given access to a therapist, or if they are near puberty, sometimes prescribe safe blocking drugs with their doctor's oversight that simply delay it long enough for them to consider if surgery is the right way. Additionally, the National Center found that only 0.4% of trans people detransitioned during the believing transition was not right, with most never having surgical intervention. Several other studies have found similar results. In fact, most detransitions were due to trans people facing discrimination, not a lack of desire in transition. While work should be done to prevent transition regret, doing so would require better and more gender-affirming care, so doctors can better assess the correct path for trans patients. Additionally, it would also help over 90% of trans people who find their lives improved both mentally and physically after it. Many GCS, being disingenuous, frame it as the most important issue in trans-related health, present it as active and intentional child abuse, and used to justify the removal of all access to trans health care, which is absolutely wrong. Everyone should get the same health care no matter what, in my opinion, because we're all human. Now finally, as an author note, WB Interactive president failed to condemn her views, or her words, for a better word. The developers inside the company, although, have worked to actually let you create a transgender character in the game, which is awesome, which is great. However, it's still hard for any trans person to look at the element and not see the harm of it that continues to be caused by the woman who created it. There is nothing at all wrong with having a desire to play the game. It looks to be a passionate project. I completely agree. It looks like the Harry Potter RPG that everyone who is a big Harry Potter fan has been clamoring for a very long time. There's even those who argue that Harry Potter can be decoupled from Rowling, justified by her lack of appearance in the recent HBO Max reunion special. Some even point to others like horror icon H.P. Lovecraft, whose work is intercanon and gone on to inspire hundreds of work despite his undeniable history of racism. But the difference between him and her is that supporting it can't currently be separated because, despite some people's desire to, she still sits at the head of the series, benefiting not only financially, but through its popularity. The more relevant the series remains, the more platform she's given to perpetuate anti-transgender language. Further, even though the books have finished, she still works on the series, penning the scripts for the ongoing Fantastical Beasts franchise. She's also linked. Harry Potter is also linked, but it supports the platform of a woman that used to inspire love, now uses her words to inspire hate. On top of that, she has used the popularity of the series to evidence that people support it, despite I'm in that camp, I don't. As a result, I cannot in good conscience support the game no matter how well I wish to. I'm not saying that the author of this article is. Anyway, to finish up, by buying the game, I'm not just supporting them. I'm supporting Harry Potter, which supports Rowling herself. And I'm going to end it right there. So, here's my take. I fully condemn. I think everyone should have equal rights. Men, women, children, no matter what gender you are. Period. Even if you're transgender, you still should get full equal rights. Period. So I fully condemn Rowling's actions. Period. So screw her. Everyone should have equal rights, no matter fucking what. So I'm still gonna get the game eventually because I still want to get this game at some point. Whether that's at launch, we'll see. But that's it this video. So what are your views on this whole thing? Are you still gonna get the game? And so let me know what you think. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.